Welcome everyone to today's webinar, all about adapting to ESG and the AI revolution as an ACCA professional on there. As Gavin kindly introduced me as a lecturer at the University of Lincoln, I also run a couple of businesses as well, and I try to actually implement ESG and AI into my practices to help myself out as a busy professional. So these webinars I like to conduct, they're all practical based, and it gives you nice little introductions to the topic areas, and so that you can take it away and use it in your own personal life, workplace on there. Feel free as ever to connect with myself, ACCA, Learn Signal on LinkedIn, all the usual sort of social media platforms, and we would love to hear your feedback at the end as well. So if you're a pen and paper kind of guy like myself, these are the key content areas that we'll be talking about in today's webinar, covering everything from understanding just what actually ESG actually is, how AI's role is being implemented in the accountancy leadership sector. Then we have strategies for ethical leadership. That can be if you work in practice or if you work in industry, running your own firm, whatever it may be. Again, all to help you out to add as much value as possible. Thirdly, we have methods to navigate risks and promote organizational change. It's one of the things of when you come to these webinars, it's take the knowledge and then go, right, how can I put this into practice and how can we get better as a result to mitigate those risks? And then finally, some insights to prepare for upcoming challenges and opportunities. So I'll be sharing with you my insights of areas of AI that I actually look to implement myself, and also the new updates in ESG that your firm or organization could be looking to implement themselves. So to get the ball rolling for today, we've got to cover first of all, the bread and butter of the importance of ESG in the modern business environment on there. And this isn't me sort of teaching you to suck eggs on these sort of things. We're just going to break it down as to what ESG is. What is the acronym on there? And it stands for environmental, social, and governance considerations, should we say, on here. And you may have heard of it in different contexts as to sustainability, corporate social responsibility, but there are differences between the three areas that you need to be aware of. So, for example, at the University of Lincoln, where I currently work, we have an environmental team that looks at everything that goes on actually on the campus, online teaching, and actually involves the staff to actually say, right, what are we doing well? Where can we improve? And let's look at the standards, what's going on in the wider environment. How can we make it more of a lovely environment for our staff, for our students, and for our different stakeholder groups on there? And this is what we will consider in today's webinar, going into a bit more detail as to, you've got the social aspects on there, the people side of your organization. These are the assets that look after your customers, come up with new ideas, and put it into practice to help your organization out. And finally, with the governance considerations, good governance leads to good performance. And this is where we'll be looking at strategies that I know we're going to have on the call today, senior managers, board of directors, people who are mainly, or maybe even just newly qualified on there. It'll be, again, practical areas of ESG and AI that can be put into your workplace. So to look at that in a bit more detail and to dive into it a bit more on there, we have the economy factors, the environment, and society. Again, depends on if you're working in a small practice or you're working for a large organization, or you might just be a small little firm. You've got to consider the economic factors of ESG on there, that performance, and can we actually repeat that to be improved in the future? So from ESG practices to say, can we make our organization more effective to the environment? An example of that within one of my companies is a case of we're trying to actually reduce down altogether the impact of, say, using paper in how we go about our business on there. Everything is as far as we can make it digitally and having a reduced impact on the environment. And these actions, you've got to say to yourself is, are they building or destroying the environment? And this is where a good key term for you to get down is if anyone's familiar with Dave Brailsford, the sort of little marginal gains that you can work at in your workplace to say, can we get a little bit better in every single thing that we are doing? An example that we have within the university, within the business school, is as you walk in, we have all different bins that are segregated so that the students can recycle some aspects, maybe their plastic bottles on there. We have areas where they can actually put their food waste as well, and then obviously waste that would unfortunately have to go to landfill. Finally, we have the society factor on there. So does the organisation enhance the social aspects of society in which it operates? This is where it leads to disclosures that impact on the ESG factors. And a key bit for your notes to get down, we can come on to it later on for in the actual webinar. The ISSB, so that's the International Sustainability Standards Board, for anyone noting it down, they have actually introduced this year 2 new standards that are going to be effective from the 1st of January 2024 on there about how companies are going to disclose on there about the requirements of sustainability, just to paraphrase what is IFRS S1, and then IFRS S2, so these are the sustainability standards, that is relating to climate-related disclosures on there. So definitely worth noting down, highly topical, and things that you could be implementing from an ESG point of view in your organization. And just to give you an insight, not just from a sort of disclosure point of view, we're going to take, for example, that you can see on the screen now about the green bond market. So traditionally, you had the usual bond market where it was a case of which countries are actually issuing bonds. And as you can see on the screen, these are the statistics for 2022, where you can just about make out on the side there that we have China were the highest issuer of new green bonds into the market. Then we have the US, and then it leads on to other countries such as Germany, the Netherlands, and France. But what we're getting at here is there is a significant change in demand around the globe now, where if I come on to the next slide for you, it breaks it down as to the different areas, different countries that are issuing these bonds, because that is the demand of what people who are investing in bonds want to place their funds. Now, this is not just for bonds. You also have ESG index funds that are becoming more and more popular, especially with younger investors who want to know that the money that they're investing into bonds, into shares, are actually going into projects and organization and the correct funds that are having a positive impact on the world on there. So again, it's something to consider maybe from your own personal finances or how you're actually managing your capital structure at your organization, that green bonds, green index funds on there, ESG funds, these are becoming more and more topical, and you need to be more aware as to what is their build-up. But from the other section, you can see there in the 39%, I can only see this being more split out, that you're going to have the UK on there, more European countries, that it is going to be more and more popular. Now then, ladies and gentlemen, this is where I want to hear from you guys out there, so that myself, the ACCA, the Learn Signal team would love to know, and you can pop it in on your phone, on your computer. The poll is live at the moment for you. You can see it on the screen. The question is, how would you describe your current workplace in terms of implementing ESG on there? So this is where we have, are they, and again, this is completely anonymous. Would you say they are A, not very good on there, B, below par, C, actually neutral, or D, they make some attempts? You've probably been invited to maybe be part of some boards or actually implement things of best practice. Or finally, E, are they absolutely tip-top? They disclose a wide range of areas, both to internal and external stakeholders. This is so that you get a feel for the other delegates who have kindly given their time to come along to today's webinar, just to see the insights as to how other people and professionals who are joining us today find that their current workplace is about implementing ESG. And of course, from that as well, taking the details from the webinar, the environmental, social, and governance factors to say, right, this is where we're currently at. How can we get that little bit better in these different sectors and areas to give a better brand image to our stakeholders? So, for example, within the University of Lincoln, we like to actually disclose as much ESG as possible on there to attract students. And when they're doing their due diligence against the university, they can see the positive impact that we have on the campus, which they will be studying as well, amongst collaborations, partnerships with the local community. All these things build up into trying to engage staff and students to be more in tune with the workplace and the ESG that we are trying to implement, and to share the knowledge to the actual wider stakeholder parties on that. So last few seconds, would you say not very good for part A? Would you vote B for below par? Would you go C for neutral? Would you go D for some attempts? Or would you go E, is your current workplace, in terms of implementing ESG, very, very good? And it looks like we've got nearly just ticking over 40% of people who have answered it now on there. Give you another 2 seconds just to make sure you pop in our answer for us. And this is what we've got overall for our answers from our delegates who are joining us today. We've still got a few more coming in. We'll give it one more second. Let's have a look. Okay, we've just ticked over 41% on there. So let's have a look at the breakdown from what we have in terms of the feedback. So this is really, really positive on here that you can see for the results. So in terms of describing your current workplace, in terms of implementing ESG, 8.2% say they're not actually very good. Just over 10% say they're below par. Neutral, we've got about a quarter of delegates who are joining us today say they're okay, they're on par with it. There are some attempts at 41% on there, and then 14.9% say they are very good. So in other words, definitely room for improvement. And if you haven't got down in your notes, like we touched on before, IFRS S1 is the first new standard from the International Sustainability Standards Board, and IFRS S2 on there is the other one. These are the first two that are actually put out this year that will be implemented on a voluntary basis come next year. So again, we'll come on to it later on, but about improving the standards of ESG. So this is where we have to consider what are the potential leadership areas that you could be implementing and the considerations of ESG here. So they don't just identify the risks, but they also identify the opportunities in ESG and the landscape to be proactive in seizing them. So that is where, when I touched on before, the new International Sustainability Standards Board have these new 2 standards that are coming into practice for next year. For every organization, it's voluntary on there if they want to put it in, if they want to disclose these different areas about climate-related disclosures, sustainability disclosures. So again, something for you to take away from today's webinar is to, one, go away and to research those in a bit more detail. And then secondly, to go back to your team, the reporting team within your organization, and say, can we embed these potentially within our disclosures for the net set of accounts? And this is where, as you can see at the bottom there, senior accountants, financial controllers, these competencies are vital to fulfilling your roles in the changing business environment. If you're not keeping up with these changes in the environment, that is where it might actually put talent off from coming to work at your organization, potential partnerships, suppliers, all these sort of things. They will do their due diligence, and that is what you have to be aware of, not to miss out on potential future opportunities. And this is where the Lens Signal team have kindly broken it down into 4 easy to digest areas that, first of all, working left to right on here, is that it's firms with a strong ESG leadership can reap tangible rewards on there. So I touched on them before about the brand image of the organization. If you're a senior leader at that firm, it would be seen that you're actually looking to implement this self to be a market leader. And from that, it'll actually enhance that reputation, both of the organization and board of directors who are in charge of governing the company. Better risk management, to be thinking ahead and then improving the investor relations. Maybe you've had an IPO or you're looking for maybe just one person to invest. All these sort of things can link into a superior financial performance because you're on top of the different changes in ESG, for example. And the next key thing is taking the action to put it into practice. Because if, for example, you weren't to put it into practice, and we're going to be seeing changes within organizations, the regulations, how an organization is going to be operating, especially, let's take, for example, the net zero targets that are coming in 2040, for example, with the likes of Tesco, Sainsbury's on there. The two key things that you should be noting down are the financial risks. First of all, you could have potential fine penalties on there if you don't hit the potential targets. And this could lead to a second risk for you in terms of the actual backlash from a reputational risk, where it could mean that you could lose customers, you might not be able to continue with potential partnerships. And some companies, organizations, individuals may not want to work with you in the future. So this is the flip side of it if you're not proactive and thinking about implementing ESG from a leadership perspective. And to break it down, just so you can think about it practically, and you've got the shifting demands from stakeholders. We live in a social media world now where you can spend 20, 30 years building up a pristine brand image, and it can be gone within overnight from just doing one particular thing. You have policies as well to take into account, technology changes as well, and the actual strategy that the businesses are implementing ESG for it. So some businesses are going to be behind the curve and playing catch up. And this is where, through webinars like today from your CBD, maybe going away from today, you want to ask your stakeholders, both internally, people who have worked at your organization, short term, long term, what their views are of your company's ESG strategy, and then also your customers, for example, those external stakeholders, again, looking at those little marginal gains that you can implement and to improve your firm. And you've got to be thinking about this from a scenario planning basis, or what is also known as a megatrend analysis basis. We've got qualified individuals here, finance directors, senior board members. And first of all, I'd be thinking from a scenario planning basis as a tool where you can just sort of visualize and prepare multiple outcomes, thinking about it, again, from a strategic point of view, the next sort of 2 to 5 years, encouraging you to think about potential scenarios, how they might impact on your business or the company that you actually work for, that involve environmental, social, and governance factors. Sitting down with your team, going away from today's webinar, and just maybe having some focus groups, engaging people who are right up at the top of the hierarchy, down to the bottom, whether you're working in practice or industry. And it's not about predicting the future on there, but preparing the organization and sharing the knowledge that you have within your team and doing background research to say, how can we get a little bit better? How can we actually share this information via maybe our website, maybe via our social media? What information are we actually putting out on ESG? Can we use this as a marketing tool on there? These are the sort of things where it can add so much value. And also, which I don't want you to overlook, it's a case of encouraging and inviting employees to be part of the vision, the strategy, and to feel like they're more involved, so that they're aiming for that and they can see that goal into the future that they can be part of. And it links into the sort of mega trends, which is on a more sort of larger scale on there, the global forces, thinking outside of the box, the far-reaching impact on there, that again impacts on the organization you work at, the society, the cultures, personal lives. How can we take ESG from a completely global perspective and take those potential areas that your team could think about that could be implemented, and then saying, how can we understand that better and preparing shifts in what we're currently doing in our operational basis on a day-to-day, week-by-week sort of situation, and then go, okay, well, this is how we're currently operating. How can we take this information from our team and then put it into practice to create the sustainability of the firm on a long-term basis, considering the global trends on that. So that just gives you a nice overview of ESG on there, the different factors, the different areas, some considerations that we put into practice at my organization. But the more topical one, which every person here, no doubt, is going to have some form of opinion on, and that's where we've got the Q&A at the end, as the role of AI and can it play in helping a sustainable development, both for you personally and for the organization that you work at. Now, it's breaking down, first of all, how can you use AI, what actually is it, to benefit your organization and your life itself. And the key bits for your notes on here, I would have down is continuous monitoring and auditing, I would say also, of data on there. So traditional approach to monitoring and auditing involves a periodic reviews and procedures to gather evidence. Okay, so that's the traditional approach, what goes on in the past. A shout out to all of our lovely auditors who are joining us today. But this is the key thing, how companies and individuals are utilizing AI technology to make and ensure these continuous and real-time monitoring the processes that are going on in the background that, say, a person might not have picked up on. And you're using the technology to your advantage. So what does that mean from a monitoring point of view for your notes and the auditing point of view? So monitoring, which can affect any organization, anybody joining us today, is comparing actual results with our plans and targets. There are AI resources out there, which we can touch on later on, you can put into your practice. And the thing that I always recommend for anyone who asks me about it, if I see them at an event or a talk, is whatever software that you are currently using within your practice, within your organization, just like us at the university, go to that provider. Maybe it's Iris, Sage, QuickBooks, Xero, anything on there, or it may be an internal package that you have, like with continuous auditing, where we have reviewing presented information to see if it's factual or not, to see, do we have any outliers? Is it following a particular trend? Does anything stand out to the software that would need a second opinion, which is where you get a qualified individual like yourself to go in and have a look at it. But it's all about utilizing it to cut down on time and to improve accuracy. And coming back onto my point for it is everyone here is going to be using some form of software within how they operate in industry, in practice. At the university, for example, for GDPR, sadly, I can't show you on the screen, but say, for example, if a student submits an assignment, okay, arc back to being 18 again, okay, try to think if you're 18 with ChatGPT out there and you're going, well, I can put in what is the role of a financial manager on ChatGPT, and it will pull out a nice few paragraphs explaining what a financial manager is on there, depending what type of question it's asked. So we have within our university software an AI tool that scans the student's submitted piece of work, which tells the academic qualified ACCA member in my case to say, right, you can't read AI and you can't tell what this piece of work if it was written, but the software can pick up on the actual pieces of work to see, does it link into any other pieces that are available out there from ChatGPT, and it's embedded so that it can pick up on these trends and the wording on there. And it gives us a percentage as academics where it goes, oh, this piece of work is 44% AI on there. And that is where it helps us. But imagine if I had to go through that manually and to try and work it out and to try and find the sources. AI has done that for us, utilizing AI, if a student used it incorrectly, to then utilizing AI to help the teachers so that it saves them time. So you've got to say to yourself, how could it actually benefit you on there? And these are the different areas. If you want to take a photo of the screen or just jot down the keywords up at the top. And this is all about explaining what has happened from a past perspective on there, understanding what has happened, why has it happened, and then from that, predicting what might happen in the future, what could we do about it, and then how can we adapt from that. So whether you're looking at data analysis on there, it will pick up on the potential trends of what it would expect. The AI would come up with a trend. Again, I'm talking from an example here. And if the actual data came out with maybe a couple of outliers, or say if we're talking about auditing now, maybe we've got a couple of outlier figures that would be a risk to materiality. The AI would pick up on that to save you having to go through each of the different databases and each of the different reports. And it would say, hey, James, these are the 3 transactions you should be looking at in a lot more detail. And then we can deep dive into it and say, okay, why is it picked up on this? Is it an outlier? Is it a massive figure? Is it that the systems and internal controls that the company we're auditing has actually not used them effectively? Maybe they've accidentally put an extra 0 on the end. All these sort of things helps us to save time and increases the actual accuracy in what we can achieve on that. So this is where, again, I'm very curious. So are the ACCA team on here. So I'm going to send you all now a pulse check, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are, of course, all still awake as we're going through on here. And it also gives me a chance to see how I'm looking on camera, because it pulls it up on the side. But my question for you for the pulse check that will be flashing up on your screen is to simply put a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And the question is, are you aware of AI practices put into place at your current workplace? So this is not you utilizing it in your own time and just doing a bit of dabbling on there just to see what it's all about, trying to understand a bit more. But it's a case of, if you go into the office, maybe you're doing 1 or 2 days a week, whatever it is, or you're speaking to new colleagues or colleagues who have been there for an established amount of time, you would be able to tell me the AI practices that they are putting into place. And these are the things within any workplace should be being openly discussed within definitely management board meetings on there, to make sure that how you're communicating with clients, or actually how you're portraying the organization, maybe on your company website, anything like that, from the operational side of it. Are you aware of those AI practices that are being put into place for your current workplace? An example of this is, I can't name the firm on there, but when they are hiring placement students, graduates out of university, they have specific training to the graduates who are going in there. Again, just picture you're 21, 22 years old, you're going on to a study contract, you're working full time, you're going to be studying as well. And you're thinking, oh, I might try and save some time now. I might use some AI in how I'm writing my emails or how I'm actually going to be undertaking my work. Well, if this is from an unofficial, non-work-based system that is used, say, off the grid, that is where they've specifically trained and told their new recruits, new trainees, that you are not allowed to implement AI practices such as that, which are not using company-approved softwares that have been vetted and they've gone through compliance on there. So just little things like that to say, maybe you're training people at your organization, maybe you're part of the recruitment process, or maybe you've not even considered it as a question. Again, something to take away from today, I would highly, highly recommend on that. So it looks like on there, I'm going to end the pulse check, but we've got 133 for thumbs up and we've got 164 for thumbs down on there. So if you're taking notes from today, I'd highly recommend it. Check it out. Just speak with your team. Have an open conversation for it. It is only going to benefit you as a result on there. Feel free to actually ask some of your younger staff as well. All these sort of things will definitely help you out. And everyone here is going to be a specialist in whatever it may be. I mean, when I was working in practice, it was producing the financial reports, taxation, tax comps. We may have auditors here. So you want to get a bit more familiar with the actual keywords of AI. And the first ones you'll see up at the top there, we have the natural language processing and machine learning as a result. So can we actually automate and have continuous processes, whether it be through the internal control framework, that the AI software is learning the systems that are being implemented. And ideally, we're just going to have a data set that is exactly the same, and they will learn how it's being put into the software, the system, and it can pick out on the particular maybe 12-month period for it. But those are the key terms if you want to do some extra research from today. Natural language processing and machine learning. If you go back to your team and say, how can we implement this in our operations to make us more effective, to lower costs? I'm now actually stealing some of my benefits, which we'll come on to, because I think these sort of things are absolutely fantastic. This is where we take that machine learning and then think, right, how can I apply it? How can I, when I go away from today's webinar with James, can I say to myself, can we look at data sets to perform tasks that would have been done manually? So an example of that is classically working in practice 10 years ago, you would have had a client set of financial records, 12 months on there, and you might have even had to have manually put it into an Excel sheet on there, trying to make it balance. Well, this is where you can actually use AI now embedded within accounting software to actually do it for you. And all you have to do as a qualified professional is to have an overview at the end to check that there are no cut-off issues and to make sure it is wholly and complete. Other examples on here, you've got anyone who deals with payments, invoicing on there. The AI tools now can pick up the details on the documents that have been provided, compile them all together, and then put them into that sort of client area of all their information that can be accessed on a cloud system so that everyone in a firm can communicate and see the same information. So just maybe going away from today, think about all the manual processes that are currently going on from when a client comes to your organization or a job is selected all the way to completion or at the end. That is where look through each individual section as you're going through and say to yourself, can I implement some machine learning, AI, tools, processes to make it more efficient on there? And the key terms, this is, again, just to give you some examples, I've touched on tax returns on there, which, again, that they're becoming more developed. Bank reconciliations, invoicing, payments are the classic ones. But keywords that just give you some prompts going away from today to have a look at are policies in place to make sure that every client has the right tick, the boxes ticked on there, the reconciliations. We also have real-time controls. That's particularly for anyone who's involved in auditing, I would say, looking at to make sure that the patterns, the correlations are as you would expect, and that any errors or outliers, anything that could affect the materiality of the data we're analyzing, that is where it can flag it up for you. Expenses, other transactions, so invoices, payables on there. Again, you can automate these through reporting so that it can be put all into one place and it gets put into one of the client areas. Again, it has some, look, if you look at the bottom of there, that we have some human oversight. This is why I always get asked, James, will AI take over accountants into the future? It won't take over accountants into the future, but it will show up accountants who can't use the AI software to help them complete the tasks. Use it as an asset and understand the processes that it has to go through on there. So for your notes, again, to ask your team going away from today, how can we look to implement it? Policies, controls, transactions, so payables, invoices, and finally, expenses is another good one that we can look at and ask your current software provider, do you have AI tools embedded already that we could put into practice? So that, again, is going to save you time and reduce costs and reduce time. These are just some of the benefits which I've already touched on before. So again, feel free to just jot them down as to, it's going to take time to implement. You're going to have to look at the operational side, the strategic side of your organization, if you work in industry or practice, your own firm. Just some of the benefits. Fraud detection on there, reducing the manual aspects, improving accuracy, done in real time, reducing and potentially eradicating all human errors. These are the sort of things that will save your practice, your organization, your firm, your team so much time and resources that you can put to better use to add more value to your clients on there. There are, however, challenges, as you would expect. I can't just sit here and say all these fantastic things on there. The data quality that you put into or utilize with AI is going to be dependent on your processes and your current systems that you have in place. And with AI, there is obviously a risk of privacy because you're using technology to try and automate, for example, but then it's a case of you have to do your due diligence, and this is where it's so important that you go away, have a good discussion with your software provider, engage with the data software and the partnerships that you have with them. So say for example, Iris, Sage, these massive global companies may be able to actually implement AI, and then we'll be able to give you reassurance, because obviously you're going to have to go to your clients and say, these are the new sort of procedures we're going to put into place. But the final key thing is the skills to put this into practice. Either you've got two options. You're going to have to bring in someone who has the skills and the expertise, who's actually been there, done it before. Or what I'd recommend is you have team-based, actually bringing people on board who have got the expertise, who look after the clients on a day-to-day basis, and you give them some internal training to say, this is how we previously did it with the software, this is the new tool that we're going to be putting into place, this is how it works, and allocating time. When I used to work in practice, it was one of those things where it's always a balance between continuous professional development and improving the processes and training people who you've got in new, but then also the balancing act between actually the bottom line of actually getting the work done, meeting deadlines, month end, payroll, management reports, all these sort of things. It is going to require the leadership of people who are joining us today to put that into practice so that your teams are not overwhelmed and you're not giving them too much, as it could be completely new to some people. So now I want to give you some practical insights from the industry, actually, as to, right, what is actually going on here and how will it actually help you? So this is where you've all been there. You've probably had monthly or Monday meetings, but it's where you can actually have some real-time monitoring. What is currently going on with client A, client B, client C? It can be used to actually have predictive analytics, as we talked about, improve data analysis, again, trying to find ways that you may be considering. Lots of accounting firms and in industry now are providing advisory services along with the usual sort of bread and butter, tax, financial reporting. Obviously, you've got to be careful if there are any issues there, especially for if there's any familiarity threats for it. But the key word on there that I would have for you to go away from today is automation. That is one thing I try to implement a lot in my personal and work life, is with, say, for investing, can I actually automate that? With any administration or client documents or students that get in touch, can I automate some of the factors that go onto it? And that's where working with what you've currently got, the assets that you have in place, I would be definitely looking at that for areas where AI is helping ESG in industry, and just to touch on other areas like reporting, which is just another factor which you can use to your advantage and to be a USP for your clients. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we have our final poll before we're shortly going to be coming on to our Q&A, final few slides. But you can see on the screen there, we have, how would you describe your current understanding on artificial intelligence? I've just given you a nice little overview as to what it actually is, the machine learning processes, some examples of from my days in practice. You know, you've got the old bank reconciliations, bringing together clients' invoices, even the process of when a client emails you with details on there, that you can have AI software that takes that automatically. It reads the document and it shifts it into the client's portfolio of records for everyone to see. These are sort of things just for my general reading around the subject and trying my best to implement it myself and learning as I'm going. How would you describe your current understanding of AI? Are you not very well? I've really not looked into it a bit more. Maybe you come to CPD events like this where I give you a little feel for it and you go, oh, that sounds quite good, but I'm not really sure. Maybe B, I need to learn more. So maybe you've gone on to ChatGPT, you've had a good look on it. You thought, wow, this is quite good on there. C, maybe you've got some reasonable understanding. You've already maybe embedded some AI within your processes, within your workplace on there. But you're thinking to yourself, we could do a lot more. Are there any other resources out there? Or D, very good on that you've already got it embedded in how you work. You understand the sort of processes behind it, the machine learning that it takes time for the AI to understand how you operate, your wording. Maybe you're a bit quirky in your language, those sort of things. But it does take time on these sort of things for it. So how would you describe your current understanding on artificial intelligence on there? Just give another couple of seconds as to it. We've got loads of people coming in, which is fantastic. Thank you very much, guys, for answering the poll on there. So let's just have a quick nosy as to what we all think. I thought it would be sort of on the middle too. So not very well, 7%. I need to learn more. So hopefully the tips and the insights that I've touched on here have helped. 60% on there. Reasonable understanding at 30%. And shout out to our very good 3.5% who are absolutely on the ball, on the money for AI. So if you want to just take a screenshot or note them down, these are some AI tools. Again, it's so hard to recommend a sort of one that fits all, but these are AI solutions for automating document-driven processes that you can take back to your team from today's webinar, like Eura on there, you've got RIM, you've got C3 AI, all about the processes, client customer relationship management. We've also got solutions for reporting, risk management on there, the data analytics. And again, it's not a one size fits all. You're going to have to do your own due diligence on it. But anything in my eyes to automate, especially documents, processes, contracts, all those sort of things, which everyone on this call has limited in their day is time. So the more that we can actually have implemented, the better it can be. And you've also got like the S&P Global on there, sustainable investments, ESG index funds, as we talked about before, ESG reporting. We've talked about the ISB today. All these sort of things you can go into a bit more detail after the webinar to have a little look at. And finally, just before we come on to our Q&A, just some industry trends to help you understand the importance of this change on here. So what you can see on the screen now is global artificial intelligence and the market size with the current trends and the predictions. So you can see right on the left-hand side, this is where, again, you've got the reference at the bottom where if you want to take a photo where these figures and data has come from, but you can see the sheer growth in the implementation of AI and the prediction of it, that it's at this point right now, it's only going to be getting more and more effective, more and more efficient, And that's where you should be thinking about implementing this in your operations of your business. And again, just to break it down so that you're not thinking, oh, is it just the UK? Is it Europe? It's all over the world on there. Now, the world is becoming a smaller and smaller place, ladies and gentlemen, and artificial intelligence, in terms of the market share you can see on here, it's not just one particular area. You're going to be doing business, no doubt, globally on there. So what I'm getting at is, if your firm is not up to date or thinking about implementing AI a lot more, when you come to operating with other organizations that already have this in place, that's where you could be falling behind the curve. You're not being as cost efficient on there and not having effective practices as well. Whew. And deep breath, ladies and gentlemen, for you. Well, finally, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to the ACCA team, the Learn Signal team, and thank you for coming as well today for our session. If you have your phones available for you, you can see that QR code on the screen. Be sure to scan there. That is where the Learn Signal team have AI and ESG CPD courses. I know it's coming up to the end of December. I've got to submit my CPD just like you on there. Maybe I get an hour for doing the session today, but I'll have to check on that one on there. Those are all the courses that you have on the Learn Signal platform. You can also get in touch with me on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me on there. Maybe take a screenshot, tag me in it. I'll be more than happy to connect with you as well. That would be